Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Stevens, and this is the Psychology to Live By podcast. May you live in interesting times. This apocryphal curse certainly captures the moment in our thoroughly divided world. Indeed, quite often lately I've been asked, how can I keep my composure when the world is such a mess? Well, this podcast is an attempt to provide some hopefully useful answers to that very timely and very important question. Given the climate emergency and the political, technological, military and economic upheavals around the world, are you struggling to keep your sense of well-being or composure? How does one enjoy life when the world is so divisive, so upsetting? How do I talk to my friends, neighbours, family, colleagues who might hold what I consider are immoral or dangerously misguided views? How do I not get sucked into toxic quicksands of outrage, righteousness and upset? And after all, what's the point of anything when things are so messed up? Well, before I take on these questions, let's make one thing clear. I'm not a political or economic commentator. That's not my expertise. Like you, I have my opinions, but this podcast will not be airing them. What I might be qualified to speak about is how to successfully navigate this turbulence psychologically. I'm really interested in how we can maintain our well-being without shutting down, without trying to suppress our awareness, or without abstaining from positive action in the world. And well, spoiler alert, the answer to all of this is equanimity. But that's like saying the answer to loneliness is to find a relationship, or the answer to sadness is to do things that make you happy. It can sound trite and even patronising. So I'll just say in advance that equanimity is perhaps the most important and the most difficult of mental states to cultivate. So in that way, it's not a glib answer. And we'll spend the rest of this and the following podcast thinking through how to deliberately and consciously develop it. But first things first, what is this equanimity that we're talking about? Well, the Latin origins of the word suggest literally an evenness of mind or spirit, equi plus animus. So it's the ability to stay calm, composed and balanced even when things aren't going well, or when you're faced with serious challenges. So, people with equanimity can maintain a sense of inner peace, not being too swayed by external events or disturbing emotions like anxiety, anger, fear, or frustration. And that's why it's so relevant now. Developing equanimity amidst the politics of division is challenging, because the discourses around us are often emotionally charged, personal, and at times outright hostile. And that's exactly why equanimity is so valuable in this context. It acts like an anchor to stabilise us in such turbulent waters. And if we agree that we ought to enjoy our life, then given we do live in difficult times, we should still try to extract enjoyment and not add to the general gloom and negativity. After all, what does my unhappiness, distress, depression, or outrage add to the world or to my life? Clearly, it makes the world more crap for me and for you. On the other hand, should I feel guilty about feeling happy in today's world? Does it mean I'm living in some kind of la-la land if I hold a realistically grounded optimism? Should I not enjoy fine food or the smile of a friend or a great movie, the last rays of a sunset and so on? Well, of course we should. And we also want to find a way to stay active in this type of world, to do our best to improve it and to enjoy the genuinely positive things in our life. There are so many things that are right in our world, and we ought to enjoy and celebrate them. So we want to be actively doing good and actively enjoying the good. Otherwise, life would not be worth living. So let's get to it. Here's an analogy that captures equanimity: ocean surfing. Surfing is a very dynamic activity. There are objective challenges in real time that, if you ignore them or don't attend to them sufficiently, will result in a wipeout. But if you accept the complete reality of the ocean, have developed relevant skills and physical attributes, have practiced enough, you can enter states of flow that are defined by equanimity, a really dynamic acceptance of and appropriate response to the unfurling reality that surrounds you. And this highly responsive engagement generates an inner sense of composure and of calm. That's one reason surfing is so addictive. It's just so good for you. Anyway, so how do we cultivate equanimity in relation to everyday contemporary life? Well, it's clearly not going to be a passive thing. Like surfing, it takes skills and developed attributes over time. Fortunately, there are quite a few ways to do it. And I believe there are 3 overlapping types of practices that develop equanimity. And these are 1, psychological, 2, practical or action-based, and 3, social. Now, they're all big topics, but we'll start with psychological strategies now, and we'll cover more in the following podcasts. Whatever we find disturbing in the world is mediated by our mind. That's worth emphasizing. Everything we experience is mediated by our mind. We cannot experience anything but through our mind. Therefore, if we can change our mind, we can change our experience. It is as simple as that, though I hasten to add simple is not necessarily easy. And I have an equation I use all the time to try to capture this. R plus M equals E, or reality plus mindset equals experience. In other words, whatever our experience is, it's always a function of the real events in the world being mediated by our mind. So even when we can do very little or even nothing at all about undesirable external events, we can always do something about how we respond, mediate, think about the world. This means we are free to reconstrue that which confronts us. If your neighbour has what you think are obnoxious views, does it follow you must be upset by that? You might notice, for example, that some days you are quite upset about it, and yet other days it doesn't bother you at all. Well, how can that be if the thing in itself is inevitably, unavoidably upsetting? Well, the answer is it isn't. It's your neighbour plus your mind that upsets you. There is literally so much that is objectively problematic in the world that we could be upset 24/7 if you so choose. You might have a belief that says you should be upset, that it would be immoral to not be upset. But note, it is the mind's view that is the immediate cause of the upset, not, as in this case, your neighbour. So in the following podcasts, I want to explore this much more deeply, but here I'll provide a couple of quick techniques for applying this insight straight away. The first is the foundation of all emotional intelligence. That is remembering that you, and not the world, are responsible for your emotions. So why is that such a big deal? Remembering is so important. It's the key. There's little point in merely understanding intellectually, but not remembering in the actual moment of upset. So let's take an example. If someone assaults me in the street, am I meant to be tranquil and calm, to be equanimous with it? Well, actually, kind of. Perhaps a Buddhist saying will help here. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So no one is saying your physical pain can or should be disappeared. Nor is it the case that your normal fight-flight reaction should be inoperative. But how you react to that unpleasant experience is what counts. It's what happens next, and next, and next. Almost all of our suffering is in our reactions to things, not to the things themselves. Instance of feeling immediate pain, getting triggered, and having hardwired reactions to the world, well, they're with us for good. But the large majority of life and of suffering is in the mind's remembering and imagining. For example, two people suffering the same assault can have wildly different life trajectories following such a horrible event. One might be galvanized to do something positive about inequality and the causes of crime. The other may descend into a life of fear and bitterness. Literally, the difference is how they think about or appraise that one event and continue to appraise it in the days and years that follow. So here's a technique that I think can really help with events like this. So something objectively bad or aversive happens in the world. Step one, we remember to notice our negative emotion, whatever it is. And this is a key. A powerful habit to establish is instantly taking our negative reactions as a cue to pay close, curious attention to our thinking. Step two. So if you're saying to yourself, I must or should be upset, you can now recognize it as a case of, well, if you say so. You realize it's just a thought. It's not a law of nature to be obeyed. And three, ask yourself, for how long am I planning to be unhappy? A few minutes, a few days, until the world changes? You start to see you have some choice in this. And step four, when you see this clearly, the negative emotion will reduce. Will the problem go away? No, but the suffering will reduce. That's one foundation of equanimity. We'll talk about how and why in the next podcast, but in the meantime, see if you can notice every day in upsets big and small how you justify the upset to yourself and instead take responsibility for your emotional reactions. See if you can choose to be happy rather than right. If you practice this a lot, it will start to become automatic. See if it doesn't significantly reduce irritations and psychological unrest. I bet it does. So take care, and I'll catch you with more on this in the following podcast. You've been listening to the Psychology to Live By podcast. If you like the podcast and want to know more, my website is www.drchris.life. There you'll find links to my various social media posts, a newsletter, and lots more. And share the podcast with people you like so they can like it too.